Hi, and welcome to the Business Owner Spotlight Series. My name is Mark McNulty, president of Action Coach Bluegrass in Southern Indiana. Today I have Scott Burnley, owner-operator of Pet Station Country Club, with me as my guest. We're going to be talking about his business, his journey to business ownership, some of the challenges and best practices, and share a peek into what it's really like to own and operate your own business. So if this is your first time on the channel, be sure to like and subscribe so you get notifications when our new interviews drop in the series. So Scott, welcome, and thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me on, Mark. Appreciate it. Always fun to talk a little dog business.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your background and how Pet Station Country Club came to be.
Sure. I say this about a lot of things, that life is all about timing and relationships. And so I went to school at Western Kentucky and actually started working for a company there. And then when I graduated, continued working for that same company in a sales role. And so I got to travel all over the state and see all different parts of the South. But it's a tough life being on the road, 200 nights a year or something like that. I think was one of the heaviest travel years I had. And so it wasn't super fulfilling. And I knew I wanted to do something different. Didn't want to do that for the rest of my life. That was not what I was destined to do. And so I sat down one day to get my hair cut. And so happens that the woman that cuts my hair, Rebecca Blackburn, she and her husband and her brother owned a very small 1,200 square foot grooming shop in Norton Commons. And I sat down, and she'd been cutting my hair for several years. And I said, Rebecca, I think I'm going to quit my job. And she said, really? What would you do? And I said, well, I think I'm going to be a dog trainer. And I knew that they owned that business, but I was just kind of, confessions in a safe setting. And it's like, I'm kind of finished with that point in my life. I've been doing it for 7 years at that point, and was just not, like I said, being super fulfilled. And I said, well, what would I do with myself? And I thought all the way back to my college years when my professor asked me if I could do anything I wanted, what would that be? And I said, well, I'd probably train dogs. And he said, well, that's what you should do. And I said, that's crazy. You can't make a living training dogs. That's a side job, right? That's a on the weekends, kind of deal. That's not something that you can actually make a living at. So I told her that. And then, the idea from the pet station grew out of that conversation about expanding services beyond grooming, and obviously opening something much, much larger. They felt like there was a need for this type of facility that offered more than just grooming and training, but also boarding and daycare. Those are our biggest things that we do. That conversation, I think, took place in 2014. And then we ended up opening our first location on Murphy Lane in Northeast Louisville in March of 2017. And we always had plans to continue to grow it. And so we opened our second location in Linden in August of 2021. And Lord willing, we will open our third location on Old Henry, close to the new Publix, in the fall of 2025.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about Pet Station and what are the services that you offer at each location?
Sure. So every location we want to set up to run and operate exactly the same, so that I can sit back and view a lot of the metrics in the same light, from labor settings, like how many people do you need to operate this facility? How much is that going to cost? How much material are you going to have to use? How much is it going to cost to build? So we try to keep them all very similar in size and certainly in offering and what we offer. And we have 4 core services of dog and cat boarding, then dog daycare, dog grooming, and dog training. So it's mainly dogs, but we do have a cattery, and we have several staff members that just love taking care of all of our cats. And so they don't get training, but they can certainly have a good time in the cattery. And so going back to the original story of, I did go to be a dog trainer. So I went to trade school down in Austin, Texas. I was down there for 6 months in 2015 and got certified as a dog trainer, and came back up and started training dogs. So that background really helped me in this business. If you understand dogs and their body language, and you understand how to communicate with them, whether that be in a group setting or a one-on-one setting, it can really help guide a lot of the practices that we use on a daily basis of how we interact with all of the dogs in our care, regardless of which service we're in. And so that certainly has been a big help in all of our core services.
Yeah, the cat training just made me laugh. I don't know that that's possible. Um,
It might not be. We haven't yet broken the code on how to train your cat. They can be a little standoffish when they want to be. Yeah.
yeah, I think it's the other way around. I think the cats train their owners. So
Perhaps, yes.
at least that's the case at our house where we've got three of them. So tell us a little bit about your role in the business. You've got some partners in the business, and what's your role day to day?
Sure. My technical title for the business is general manager over both facilities that are currently operational. Now, that's not possible without very strong leadership in each of the departments. So for those departments, we have heads of those departments. They're very much in charge of the day-to-day operations for how everything's going to run. And so the way I look at it is my job is to make sure that all of our leaders in the organization have everything that they need to do their job. And so if I care for them and I care for their staff members, and then in turn, they care for the dogs, it's kind of backwards. It's like I can go several days in my position and barely interact with a dog, believe it or not. Like that's just not my job. My job is to care for the team, and their job is to care for the dogs. And so it's kind of an interesting dynamic. They think, oh, let's get into the dog business because I love dogs. And while I do, my job is actually in the people business. And so that's really kind of a big distinction that I don't know that I was quite prepared for when I first started, that that's what it was going to turn into. But that's certainly what it did 8 years later.
Right. So how do you market your business? Where do you get your clients from?
So we had a lot of organic growth in the beginning in just, your standard, like I think we did a billboard, and we had a lot of news outlets that we partnered with. We partnered with a guy to help us with the earned media side of things, to help get us on the news, get the Courier Journal to write an article about us when we first opened. That really did help drive some traffic because it was unique. Certainly, we weren't the only pet boarding facility in Jefferson County when we opened, but we were probably the largest and certainly unique in our scale because our Murphy Lane location has 6 acres. And so we have, a half-mile nature trail, which is not something that you get in a lot of places. We have these enormous turf yards that are 5,000 square feet in size. And so again, just the scale of our operation was a little bit larger, so it was unique in that way. And we've continued to try to be on the leading edge. So aside from a lot of cute dog pictures that you can obviously post on the internet, we'll do when we opened the new location in Linden in 2021, we did a lot of digital advertising, targeted ads, what they call targeted ads. So you'll pinpoint certain areas, and when you're reading an article, on your phone or scrolling through an app, our ad will appear if you hit certain metrics, if they think you own a dog or if you're of a certain demographic. And we did that with some success, but I think really our biggest piece of marketing is our word of mouth referrals. So if we do a good job, we do have an agency that we partner with that will send clients an email or a text message saying, hey, did you like your experience? Please rate us on Google. That's been very, very helpful because if you do a good job, people then want to go out there and tell other people about it. We actually, when new clients sign on, there's a how did you hear about us line, for their profile. And the overwhelming majority, well over 50% of those clients that sign up are word of mouth. So that really is our biggest marketing feature and the one that we're most proud of, because again, that's clients that have used us and that are without prompting or without giveaways or, anything. There's no referral bonuses. It's just saying, hey, I go to the pet station. I really like what they do. You should check them out.
So now you've recently won some awards, if I'm not mistaken. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we've been blessed. We just won the Courier Journal's Top Workplace Award. It's the first year that we had tried that and won, and that was based on the engagement survey that we did with all of our team. It was the team just ranking how they felt about working here, and then when they put us up against other businesses in the service category, we were above the median. And so we're really excited about that. We won a top workplace award through our scheduling app, Homebase, because of all the communication that we do through there. We are a finalist for a pet boarding facility award for, it's a nationwide award for what they call large facilities, so 50 plus employees. We'll find out if we win that in September, but we're very excited and we're going to Tucson to hopefully collect on that award. And I told my team, I said, if we don't win that award, it's not because we're not the best, because I absolutely believe that we are. It would just be, I did a poor job of describing to their committee why we are the best, and that I would try again next year. So, that's kind of the mentality that we carry with us, is that we set out to be the best in everything that we do. And so we're very proud of carrying that through, and how we kind of live out our core values, and how we just interact with our team members, how we interact with our clients, and especially how we interact with our dogs.
Oh, great. Well, congratulations on all those.
Thank you.
I've met a lot of your team, as you know, and they love working there, and it shows. So, looking back at your journey, what are some of the challenges you had to overcome as you started this and built the team and then built the second location? What are some of the roadblocks or hurdles that really stick out that you had to really work through to overcome?
Yeah, great question. You wouldn't think that some sort of natural disaster could kind of rock an industry the way that it does without actually affecting the building or affecting the team. And so what I mean by that is, in 2017, we had the dog flu that came through. H3N2 was the strain of flu virus that infected dogs. It was very, very infectious. And even though all of the dogs that came into our facility were fully vaccinated against it, it still spread throughout our facility, to the point where 2 different times, the first year that we opened, we actually had to shut our doors because we could not get rid of it. There was just too much. It was too airborne. Dogs just walking past each other, and boom, now one's infected the other. And so on February the 1st of 2018, I'll never forget the day, I looked at our bank account, and we did not have enough money in our account to cover a payroll. And that was a very eye-opening moment, that this all could go away, and there's not a thing that we necessarily did wrong, or that the building is still there, the team is still together, and yet we're dealing with this thing that feels like it's out of our hands. And no matter how much you can clean, and no matter how much you can disinfect, when something is airborne and a dog walks in and they're not showing symptoms and they're just breathing out particles, much like with COVID, it was nearly impossible to stop without physically shutting the doors and then, screening every dog that came back in. And so for a very new business, that was very, very tough. And it taught me that we can get through stuff like that. We're in a much different financial position now than we were when, 6 months post opening, obviously. But, we faced something similar when COVID hit, and we had to shut our doors. Through part of our company, the grooming side was shut down by executive order. And then the other part, there's a lot of back and forth, but the governor got on the news and said, oh, well, boarding facilities shouldn't be operating. And so we ultimately shut down again, and in that case, there was some PPP loans that we were able to latch on to help kind of stem the tide. But, at that point now, it's again, something that's out of your hands. You're sitting here and you're like, I'm just trying to operate my dog business. And yet I'm concerned that every employee that walks through the door, I'm going to infect, because we are not a work from home company. We are a service industry. We will always be boots on the ground in the facility, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. There's no way around that. We had to face all of those challenges of team members coming in every day and trying to keep them safe. And so, between those, a dog flu and then a human pandemic, those are very challenging. It was also very challenging opening a second location. Thought we had enough staff, felt very, very full with one team. And then all of a sudden you split the team in half and move certain members over. And you realize that not everybody was maybe on board with that move. And so that can cause some turnover, and you realize how quickly you can go from very prepared to very not prepared in a service-based industry when it comes to not having enough team members to fulfill your roles. And so we really had to work on scaling the business very, very slowly so that we were protecting our team, because we could have driven it a lot faster. We could have brought in more dogs. But if we didn't have the team to support those dogs, not only would we be doing a huge disservice to the dogs, we'd be doing a huge disservice to our team by putting too much on them, where they feel like they could give quality care to every dog that they interacted with in their department. So that really kind of forced us to grow at a sustainable pace. But in the long run, that pays off. But in the short term, it doesn't.
So, you talked about your team. Tell me a little bit about your philosophy that you put in place over the years of developing your team, growing your team, and that created this ability to win Best Place to Work award.
I think it all starts as Mark, as you helped us in this process. It all starts with the foundation of your company. What is your company built on? Are you built around a set of values? Are you built around a similar mission? Are you built around a similar vision? And do you talk about those values? Do you talk about that vision? Do you talk about those things all the time, almost ad nauseum, almost to the point where people kind of roll their eyes when they hear me talking about the exact same thing again and again and again and again? But where I think that shows up is in those little moments every day when we're talking about character. That's one of our values. Or compassion, is another one of our values. And so it's like, if they hear me talk about it enough and hear me live it out enough, and if I talk till I'm blue in the face to my leaders, and then they do half of what I do to them, to their team, it can kind of, matriculate out. And it certainly does all start at the top. I do believe that, as far as, setting the course, the tone for how we're going to act on a daily basis, what's going to be acceptable, what's not going to be acceptable. But I think people really, in a world where there's a lot of confusion, it could be a trying time. We're a young company. Most of our staff is Gen Z. So they're trying to find their way. They're trying to separate from their parents. They're trying to get their first apartment. Those types of things. They're going through the trials and tribulations of the formative years. And obviously we have a lot of high schoolers too. And so it's like being really strong and really consistent with how you talk about your values and how those values translate into everyday things. It's like, well, how does character translate into how you take a dog out? Well, it does, because nobody's necessarily going to see you take that dog out. Well, did you leash that dog the proper way? Did you interact with that dog the right way? Did you give that dog enough time out of its room to go potty the right way, right? Were your services exactly 15 minutes? Those are all character things. And so if you're really strong with those values and how you talk about those, then people can kind of fall back on that when the road gets rocky or when they don't necessarily know the way forward. I know for me personally, we run into a laundry list of things we run into every day. We know how to handle them. Boom, 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 boom. But when something new comes up, it's like, we've never experienced that. We've never had that happen. We've never dealt with that. How do you go about making the decision that's going to guide the company in that unknown path? And it always falls back to our values. That's where it all goes back to for us. So that's been a very big part of how we build a team and how the team members kind of latch onto that. And then we do a lot of fun stuff with our team members to try to keep them engaged. Say, oh, it's another work function, it's out of stuff. But if you make it fun, if you make it engaging, and if your team actually likes one another, which again, that's not easy to do, to build that takes years. But if they do like each other, then they work with each other, not only in, but out of the office. And that is, I feel like has been a big help for us as well.
So, in 7 years, you've grown a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So how have you, as a manager, leader, had to change over that time to be who your team needed you to be as you grew?
Yeah, that's a great question. When I first started, the team was obviously a lot smaller, but I was accused, perhaps lovingly, of being very robotic in my movements, in my responses, in my tone. And and I attributed that a lot to just how there was so much going on. Everything was new. I'm trying to process everything. And then I'm just trying to input, output, input, output. I'm just, it's very transactional. And maybe that's what the business needed then, because everything was new. Every word that comes out of your mouth is a new policy that is just now created because you had no idea that this thing was going to happen, that was going to cause you to have to write that down. And maybe that's what we needed then. But now, as I've grown, it's much more relational. There's a lot more empathy for me and my team, or at least for me personally, in how I interact with them. Because again, this is a service-based industry. We do all of our work right here, which is unique because a lot of businesses are remote. They're work from home options. They're in and out of the office, or they're sales. They're traveling around. They don't get to see each other. No, here it is. There's 35 of us in here every day working closely with one another. So that team dynamic, it can be fragile at times. And so what I realized is that, oh my gosh, something that happens outside of work really does affect how somebody shows up. And that you have a staff of over 100 people, which we do now, a lot of crazy things can actually happen, just in life, because it just statistically there's more people and wild stuff can happen. And being able to talk about that, process that, show empathy for that, show compassion for that, help that particular team member out in a situation where something has rocked their world and they're not showing up in the way that we need them to every day, giving them the time and the space. So much of that was just created from seeing that we're all human beings. We all have good days, we have bad days. And how can we still uphold all of our standards to give the ultimate in quality care for every pet and allow everybody to be human all at the same time? And that's a fine line. I could give you a dissertation on it, but I couldn't just give you bullet points on how everything is done. But that's definitely how I've grown and changed over the last 7 years, has been how I handle the team.
Okay. Awesome. Last question about the team is, you've invested in your team.
Mhm.
A lot of businesses struggle to do that. So you brought in training, you brought in coaches at different times for different team members, different levels. What led to that decision to invest heavily in the team? And what have you see as the return on that investment?
Yeah. So our philosophy on that is, I want to make, especially, and I'm going to talk just about my leaders here now. One of the things is I wanted to raise the bar in this industry. It was very mom and pop. It was very just side hustle kind of job, part-time work, that kind of stuff. And what we said is, no, we want to turn these into career positions outside of just the training and grooming commission-based positions, trade school stuff. So for our leadership, like, we put them on career paths, right? And now they become salaried employees. And so then it's like, okay, well, if they're going to be leaders in the company, and if they're going to have a team of people that rely on them and that we need to perform at a high level every day, they have to be a quality leader. They have to be able to handle all of the things that come up with their team every day. And so it was like, I want them to be able to grow as an individual, and everything that they learn that helps them both personally and professionally, they can apply here and help our team and our organization. But if and when they choose to move on, it's going to help them be a better person in their next role, in their next company, right? And so every decision that we made was, how can we make them a better person? And not in how they view the world, but in how they interact with their team, in how they lead. We feel like everything is very much perspective based. It's, this situation has happened. How do you view it? How do you take it? How do you respond to it? Right? Because so much of those dogs are obviously unpredictable. Things happen all the time. It's like, all right, well, what do we do? How we choose to respond is actually how we show up in those moments. And obviously our team takes from our cues in those moments. And so it's like, okay, we need them to grow personally. We need them to grow in how they handle emotions, how they compartmentalize maybe some heavier items that happen, because obviously we deal with, at times, older dogs that have a lot of health issues, geriatrics. And then you get enough dogs, you get phone calls once a week. Oh, so-and-so has passed away. And how the staff deals with that. They're like, I've cared for that dog for 5 years. I love that dog. So it's like, we had to invest in them to help them be able to grow, obviously, on the professional sense. And how do you lead? How do you organize? How are you efficient? Right? Those things. But then how can you balance that with the personal side? And so that's kind of our philosophy. And we're excited to continue that. All of our leaders have business coaches through an online platform that they meet with twice a month. And we have our own course coaching through my business partner, Rebecca, who is a life coach. She takes a lot of our assistant leaders through to help prepare them for the next level. But again, it's all about preparing them for what's next, not only personally, but professionally as well. So far, I always say it, so far, it's been working very well. And if it were to change, we would change with it, because that's how you remain relevant in today's market, at least in this industry.
Awesome. A lot to learn there for other companies in terms of the benefits of investing in team. So we've covered a lot today. So last few questions here, kind of quick ones to wrap us up. So what's your key to success, Scott?
So my key would be consistency. Can I show up and be the same person that they need me to be every day? regardless of how I'm feeling internally, regardless of what's going on in my personal life. I spent the better part of yesterday in the hospital with my son who took a tumble down the steps, and he's fine, but that could throw you off, right? But how can I show up at 9 o'clock this morning and there's a delivery that has arrived that was not, didn't tell me that was going to be here, and it was wrong, and they're, and everybody's looking at me like, what are you going to do? And how I show up in those moments is very important because it bleeds down to the rest of the team. And if I'm got a lot of anger and a lot of anxiousness and just I'm buzzing around, that's not the energy that we want to portray. And so for me, the key to success is, can I be the same great guy every day and be empathetic and open and welcoming to every team member? And if I can do that, I'm going to be successful.
Awesome. What's one piece of advice for other business owners?
I wouldn't know that I would be the best person to ask because, again, every day it's a challenge. Like every month, I feel very blessed. I have a lot of gratitude. I feel lucky that nothing is overly gotten in our way of us, growing and reaching things that we ascertained. But advice, that's not cliched. You're probably capable of more than you thought. Like originally when I set out, I said, oh, I'm going to operate 5 of these, or that's going to be failure. And this is back when there was 0, right? And now I'm at 2, and we're in the heavy planning stages for the 3rd. And my head's spinning. I'm like, whoa, that's what was I thinking back then? And so I think maybe the advice that would be beneficial is sometimes I get so caught up and so focused on here's the next thing, here's the next thing, here's the next milestone, is to take a step back. This is something I have to remind myself a lot, to take a step back, to look at it from a bigger view and say, wow, look at what we did. Look at how successful that was. I come in every day and I look at the problems and I look at the things we need to fix and the things we need to work on. And I'm always focused on that. And if I do that too much and I don't take the time to just be like, wow, we have a lot of great interactions every day, I can kind of miss some of the joy in owning a business.
Okay. Awesome. I like that. So what's a book that you're reading or listening to on audio that you would recommend to others?
Well, I have 2 young boys. One's 4 and one just turned 2. It's his birthday today. And I'm listening to Wild Things, which is a book on how to raise boys, and specifically geared towards moms and dads or caretakers for how to raise boys and all the different stages that they go through. And it's a very good book written by 2 therapists. It does have a Christian bent to it. It's really eye-opening. I feel very confident in my parenting, but then I'm like, oh man, they're constantly growing and changing. And so everything's new all the time. And I'm like, oh, wait, I was just getting settled with them in this stage, and now they're in this stage. And it is just continuations of that. And you can relate a lot of that to business because as your business continues to grow and evolve. But that is what I'm currently in the middle of right now. And so that's what I would recommend.
All right, awesome. So if you could choose one area of your business that you could immediately improve, what would that be?
That I could immediately improve or would like to immediately improve?
Would like to, if I had the magic wand, right?
So it would be our training department. And here's why. Our trainers, and myself notwithstanding, we have 4 of them now. And one of them just got married over the weekend. I was blessed to be attending in that wedding. And I love the fact that, as a team that we're in, all the trainers were there. So we all got to experience that together. But the reason I say the training department is because it has grown. It has doubled. Originally, this time last year, we had 2 trainers, but now we have 4. And so that's 4 mouths to feed. And it's a commission-based position. And so we need double the amount of leads that we did need in order to keep everybody busy and, working in what we call full books. And so we are continuing to revamp our marketing around our training department because our trainers are top notch. They all have been to school. They all the same school that I went to. They all meet that standard and they do wonderful, amazing work. A lot of things they're better at than I am. And now what they need is more people to say, hey, I'm looking for training, and to show those services off to everybody. It really is just a function of the fact that the dog training industry has changed a little bit over the last couple of years. The demand is not as high as it was post-pandemic, and a lot of it has waned. And so you couple that with the fact that now all of a sudden you need twice as much as you were originally getting. And so now you're like, oh, we have to adjust in order to continue to not only give all of our team plenty of dogs to work with, but it's an important part of our business and profitability. So if you said, what is one thing I could fix? It would be that right now.
Awesome. So if people had a dog and wanted to learn more about how to work with you, what are the best ways to get in contact with you, learn more about what Pet Station offers?
Sure. Well, of course, website is a great way. Well, obviously, we post a bunch on Facebook as well. But what I suggest is seeing is believing. And so we encourage everybody to come in and take a tour. We offer tours anytime that our lobby is open. So we're staffed 24 hours a day, but our lobby's, only open from 7 to 7 Monday through Friday. And then on the weekends, it's open as well. But anytime we're open, we are always on, and we want to come and show people what it is that we have to offer. And so we encourage everybody to, before they try us out, you've got to come and see us first. And it's a great way to ask every question that you could have and learn about services you may not have even known that we have. But we did spend a bunch of money and time on our website that obviously says a lot of those things as well. So if you just Google the Pet Station, we're going to pop right up. And I always encourage people to read reviews to try to get an accurate sense of what others think about us. And we'd love to show everybody that as well.
Should they schedule a tour or just come on in?
Just come on in anytime we're open. It's an interesting thing because a lot of facilities, they're like, oh, it has to be scheduled. But the way that we look at that is like, well, what could they be hiding? And not that they would be, they're probably just doing it for labor purposes. But the way that we're set up is that we're open. Come look at us any time of the day, because believing really is seeing. And if you can't see and smell what it is a dog facility is all about, then you might pause before you take the next step. So that's why we're very transparent. That's part of how we complete our mission to be the ultimate, is in our transparency. There's windows everywhere in this place. We want everybody to be able to see, and we take them all through everything because we're proud of what we have and we want to show it off.
Awesome. All right. Last question today. What inspires you the most right now?
I have the privilege to work with my wife on a daily basis. She is the director of human resources. It's kind of cool. We're only a 100-member team, but we have an HR department. And we thought that that was very important because of the fact that our team is our success. We are nothing without our team. And so we felt like it was very important for everybody on the team to have a resource. So the fact that I get to work with her every day is very inspiring to me. And obviously my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, is my daily inspiration as well. We certainly don't have a political bent. Dogs aren't political. And we certainly don't have a religious bent when it comes to our team. But I lay my hands on the building and pray a lot over our team.
Awesome. Well, listeners, this has been Scott Burnley, owner-operator of the Pet Station Country Club, with 2 locations and a third coming next year.
Great.
There are just lots of tips, lots to learn from this. So make sure you bookmark this one. I would suggest watching it a couple times and then go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss any future interviews. Scott, thank you so much for your time today. It's been great having you on.
Thank you. It was a pleasure, Mark. Thank you, as always.
All right. So from Coach Mark and Scott Burnley, thanks for listening, and we'll see you again on the next interview. Bye for now.